Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Amy.
And this is Monumental, a small show about the big things God does in the lives of ordinary people.
So today we're sitting down with Sebra Baker to talk about Christian community and hospitality. Sebra's the wife of one of our pastors, and she's a really great cook and has an eye for making things beautiful. And she and Stephen are constantly opening their homes to others.
Okay, but what if you're not a pastor's wife or a great cook or skilled at making things pretty?
What I hear you asking is, what should Christian community and hospitality look like?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's a good question. Well, let's find out what Sebra says.
We were engaged and went to school in Pennsylvania, and Stephen really wanted to find a good church to go to for us to get premarital counseling. And we found a really good church. And it was great, actually, for many reasons, and even having to do with our topic today. But while we were going to the church that whole school year, we would travel an hour, so it made sense to just stay. We would stay all afternoon and stay for evening service, and then go back to campus in the evening after Sunday evening service. And so I think, as far as hospitality goes, that's where I just saw it for the first time in a beautiful way, because these people would just have us in their homes every Sunday and we'd spend time with them and eat food with them. And it was very, very sweet. They just loved us. One of the families that we met, we just became instantly great friends with. We were super close, and all of their friends became our friends, and we just started spending a lot of time together. What was appealing to us was just the seriousness that they took Scripture as far as not being worldly. We didn't want to be worldly Christians, just materialism and stuff. And we really wanted to take seriously spending time in fellowship with one another, encouraging each other to love and good deeds, and working together, playing together, eating together was what we were really hoping to do and wanted to do. But they were just kind of anti-stuff, worldliness, materialism, just wanted to live a very simple life. And that meant, try to live off grid if at all possible. We don't want to be paying electric bills. And so we spent so much time with them. We just hung out with them all the time. And it was very fun. And then we grew to the point where it's like, well, let's do something about this. If Hebrews talks about them breaking bread together daily and sharing all things, we want to take that seriously and do it. So we went looking for land. We drove to Kentucky and walked several parcels of land and And we'd already been exploring what are, some of the cheapest things, housing option, that we could live in. And we came up with teepees, and well, people lived in teepees for years, so why couldn't we?
Yeah.
And so we landed on teepees, and, as we're surveying land, it's like, we could set up teepees here. And
So it was the whole group of you who were doing it?
Yeah, it was mostly, the commitment to find land together was one other couple, and Stephen and I. We made that trip together. And then there would be other people who would probably join us. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like to be a cult. It was just going to be this community of people who took care of each other.
I think this is really important, because this is actually a pitfall of people who want to live biblically and want to live out hospitality and just Christian community. And one of the options is to go off and isolate yourself from the world. And
really, we were so incredibly proud, very judgmental of people we did go to church with and worship with, because of the way they lived or who they worked for or where they worked, or, and just, it was, what then began to happen was we were cutting ourselves off from other people, and there wasn't fellowship
Right.
that we thought was so important to us. You know,
Right.
we were distancing ourselves actually from people, all in the name of like taking scripture seriously,
Right.
you know. Anyway, thankfully we did not buy land in Kentucky. And
So you went and you looked, but then you ended up not.
going
buying.
through with that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Stephen's dad, I think maybe wasn't in good health at all. It's like, well, we could just get a teepee and go live in Indiana. And so be close to family for a while.
Right.
So that's what we did. We bought the teepee. We cut our poles from the rental farmhouse that we were in. The back property had all these beautifully straight, tall pines, just this tight grove of them. So they were perfect teepee poles. And we cut them all down, drug them out of the woods, made them smooth. So we were in Indiana with our teepee, living on his brother's property. Even then, we had a guy who was very sympathetic to what we were doing, how we were living. And he rode his bike all the way down from Elkhart, Indiana, to come and just stay with us for a while. And he built his own little like debris hut. So he didn't stay in the teepee with us, but he had his space. But
He liked the idea of experiencing that.
yeah. And this was like a brother of somebody we'd met in college or something. I don't know. Pretty random. But we did have, we found a church to go to. We would invite people over to come and eat with us out there.
That was a fun experience for anybody.
Yeah. Oh, they just all thought we were crazy. Yeah. Oh, and we had the twins at this point.
Right.
As well. And I was pregnant with our third son. So
did you have the babies in the teepee?
well, I was planning on having our third son in the teepee. We found a Amish midwife. We just went driving around Indiana countryside until we found an Amish community and just started knocking on doors because we knew they had midwives.
Yeah.
And so they finally, pointed us in the right direction, and we found a midwife. And I was amazed. She had delivered 70 babies, and I just thought,
wow.
Oh my goodness, this is amazing, That wasn't very many at all.
Oh, it sounds like a lot, but that's not actually.
In my mind then it seemed like a lot, but no, it wasn't very many at all. But yeah, she agreed to come and be with us to deliver in the teepee. But thankfully then, so this is where I keep getting the details mixed up, but we did actually then get called back to Pennsylvania. And that maybe was for taking over. Yeah, the first one must have been a year internship, and this would have been to take over for a Bible teacher that had just left mid-school year. So we went back to Pennsylvania. So that was the end of our TP time.
And you guys were ready to give that up? You knew?
No. Then we moved into a goat barn next to our friends whose cabin we had helped them build when we were out there previously.
So wait, they abandoned the TP idea and went and built themselves a cabin?
Yes, because I don't know what made it where we ended up not going to buy land together. Well, it wasn't so much about having to have a teepee, but just an off-grid place to live. And so their cabin was off-grid.
Right.
We helped them build it. They had then built a goat barn with a chicken coop on the side, but had never ended up getting goats. They had chickens, and so we lived in the 12 by 12 goat barn when we went back. We spent the winter, not the entire winter.
You were pregnant with?
I was pregnant with Isaiah. We moved in October. He was born in December, a week before Christmas.
Did you have a stove in there?
We had a wood stove.
Okay, I was going to say, did you just freeze?
No, we did.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh.
So it was, I'm sure, yeah.
So the goat barn was just like 2 layers of wood with like tar paper between them,
Did you enjoy this lifestyle, or what was it like for you?
I actually, like the teepee, I loved that. I loved living like that. I loved the process that it took, to do the things that you needed to do. But it took all of life to do it. And that's another thing that plays into this.
Yeah.
You don't have time, actually, for much time with people, to interact with them. I mean, it is a lot of work to live like this. It might be simple as far as not stuff, but it takes so much time. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Everything except the spiders in the teepee. Oh my word. It was so bad. And the goat barn, it was really cute, just put and in both places, the teepee and the goat barn, we had real furniture in there. And
when I think goat barn, I still think like hay on the ground.
Yeah, it had never had goats in it. So it was just a wooden 12 by 12 barn, basically. Mm-hmm. If the shared wall with an inhabited chicken coop. They would wake us up every morning.
Would the smell not waft over?
Not until, the warm days when it got up to like 50, you could smell those chickens.
Yeah. 50, that's not even that warm.
Yeah. So, we either froze or it was like a sauna. It was so hot in there. It was a very difficult stove to regulate.
I bet.
So we were in the goat barn. Then Isaiah was born a week before Christmas, and I was just kind of sick. I think his whole pregnancy, at least once it got cooler, I just low-grade fever for like months and just wasn't well. And then having toddlers in this 12 by 12 goat barn, it just was getting to me.
Might have been me on day one.
It started to get rough. So anyway, we ended up moving to town. That's where things started to change. We moved to town, which felt like a total compromise.
Mm-hmm. What did you move into?
Someone else in the church had like a duplex, and they lived in half of it and the other half was empty. So we stayed in that half for maybe a month, and then we ended up buying a duplex from this family, and we moved into that and rented out the other half.
But you had like running water and electricity and a bathroom.
You could just like flip a switch and a light would come on.
Yeah.
No kerosene, no matches. It was amazing.
So was that for you a turning like, actually, this is the life I want?
No, not even that. I mean, and when we first went to that half of the duplex from the goat barn, it was so big, and it was just like, I just didn't even want the boys going upstairs. It just felt like so far away.
Yeah.
I just wanted them to stay close. And the thing that just was like, oh my goodness, what have we been doing? We started hosting a Bible study in our home every Monday night, and our duplex was tiny, but we would have probably 7, 8, 10 people every Monday, and it was just wonderful. There were just people there all the time. People could just come over for dinner anytime. We were just available.
Yeah.
And we had a house. We had a place for them to sit. And that was like, oh my goodness, this is community.
This is actually.
Even though we're 4 feet from our neighbor, those really tightly packed, just residential streets. This is community. It's not less godly, but in some ways it felt like we had compromised, But I was so thankful for that we were just kind of pushed into it. And then during that transition time, the whole seminary idea came to us. Well, and didn't come to us, but a seminary was being started on the East Coast.
The seminary idea. The idea of Stephen going to seminary, or
for Stephen to go to seminary, because these pastors on the East Coast were starting a seminary.
Okay.
And Stephen really wanted to do that.
So these Bible studies and things that you guys did, was this like both of you were like, yes, we want to host things, or was it Stephen? I would like to host this.
It's just what we did. And then Stephen was like, well, let's go through this book together and let's pray together. And
just kind of evolved, developed.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I was wondering, if Stephen was in ministry or going into ministry, but you were living sort of this exclusive lifestyle.
Yes.
What was your view of outreach and hospitality and evangelism and those sorts of things? How did those worlds meet? Or not me.
Or maybe they hadn't met
yet.
Well,
I think at the time we were in the teepee and goat barn, we felt like we had a lot to like share with people and like help them see, to live community with us,
Oh, okay. So it was more about trying to get people into that similar
mindset. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to take it seriously like we were.
Yeah. Which is interesting then, because then ministry becomes about a particular lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh,
not
absolutely.
about like
That's
just the gospel.
totally what it was. Totally what it was. Community does not mean living all next door to each other with no electricity and or at least your own generated electricity. Even then, that's not what it means. It just
that is actually it is a common pitfall of
the pitfall of.
Well, I think, like you said, pride and wanting to get it right, and so we're gonna, basically in the name of community, isolate ourselves, and so that we are 100% biblical, and that is, that's
believers living off of principles they've created that make them feel more spiritual or something.
Absolutely.
And for you all, that looked like going and living in a teepee on a piece of land. And that's how that was the practical application that you guys came up with.
So Stephen decided to go to seminary. So you were living in a duplex, you were starting Bible studies. Stephen started going to seminary. So how did your ministry go from there?
So when seminary was over, there just wasn't anything available to us where we were in Pennsylvania for Stephen to work in a church or to be a pastor. And, we were just waiting and praying for doors to open. And we tried some things and nothing seemed to really pan out or be what God had for us. And so I remember one Sunday morning we were sitting in church and Stephen just said, I know, why don't we move back to Indiana? And then we talked about it more after church. And he said that he has a great aunt who lived in Bloomington and she had left this trust fund for any of her descendants to go to IU. And so he decided if he went back to school, then maybe that would just make him
open up other
possibilities for him to teach or, whatever. It was just, there wasn't really anything else to do.
Wasn't opening that possibility.
So we moved to Bloomington and we ended up getting into contact with Pastor Bailey, and we started then going to, at that time it was Church of the Good Shepherd. And I think the church here had wanted, or, the pastors had always hoped to have a place where they could train men to be pastors. And that was something that Stephen had always wanted to do. He was trained by pastors of local churches and just saw the benefits of that compared to our normal seminaries that we have in America, where we send people off and nobody knows them. They're not connected to a local church. And so for him to come here and they say, yes, we want to train men for ministry, and Stephen to be willing and eager to do that, that became what we did here at the church, now Trinity Reformed. And we're happy to be here. And Stephen is doing what he'd always hoped to do.
Did you connect when Stephen, going to seminary and the pastorate, or did you ever have the idea, this is what pastors' wives are supposed to do, this is just what I'm supposed to do? Or
I don't remember thinking the thought. It just seemed like this is just what you do.
Natural.
And even just you're a Christian, this is what you do. You open your home and you care for people. I don't remember thinking, oh, I have to do this.
Your first example and experience in living hospitality and Christian community was in Pennsylvania. And you guys just were like, you just gave yourselves to that.
We saw it. We had it done to us or for us.
Right.
They really cared for us. The church in Pennsylvania, they loved us so much and taught us so much. And I was introduced to Edith Schaefer's book, L'Abri. And I just love that book. Love it.
And that one of their main ministries was, it was over the dinner table and over meals that her husband, Francis, would just teach. And her main one of her main contributions to that time was just facilitating it with food and the time to be able to just sit and eat good food and let her husband teach and engage in discussion. And
because I really liked that book too.
is that a different
What is a
one?
Family is a book she wrote.
That is kind of what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of are need to
because you've been saying all along, Stephen wants to train men.
And so he gets to do it now.
So you provide that environment then for him to have people into the home, and you provide a warm environment for people to sit and Stephen to train.
And great food.
I see my role is just being to make his job easier and make what he does work for him. And I like the behind the scenes stuff. I like just making food and making stuff people comfortable. And thankfully too, since moving here, we have built a house. We've made up for every small place we've ever lived in this house. It's big.
It's far from a teepee.
Yeah. And so I feel a little guilty having such a big house and so much space. And I just love being there. I love looking out the windows just to the trees. But from the very beginning, we were going to build a house that lots of people could be in. And the whole goal was for it to be used.
To be a place of ministry and a place of hospitality.
Yeah. And that all sounds really nice. Like, that's what I want. But then it happens, and I'm like, oh my word, how many people are coming? How long are they staying? How many meals do I have to fix for them? Can we call some other people to have them over? So I get cold feet pretty easily, pretty quickly when it comes to it, the big idea of it. And the whole purpose of this house is to have people over and for it to just be used up. But then it's like, oh, really?
All
Again?
the prep for it. So do you enjoy it once they're there and once it's happening?
Yeah.
Is it more
Yeah.
like leading up to it? It's sort of overwhelming because there's so much to do to get ready for that kind of thing.
Just the stress of like making sure everything is okay and right.
Yeah.
And then once they're there and it just is what it is, it's just always fine. And I do like having people there.
So how do you deal with that when you have these, having somebody else over again, or having a group of people again? I've got all this work to do.
Recovered from the last one yet.
How do you deal with that when it's hard, when it isn't easy to host?
I do it, but I'm complaining. I think it's in 1 Peter to practice hospitality without complaining or something like that, and of course it has to be said because I'm going to complain about it. That's Scripture tells us what we need to hear. It knows what we need to hear. God knew what we needed to hear. And I have been, I think, more and more noticing my complaining. I don't know if it means I'm complaining more or I'm just like, I'm doing this and it's not good.
But I think it's helpful for you to share that you struggle with complaint in hospitality, because I think that's the struggle for a lot of people in hospitality. Is it's not easy and it's not always fun. But as Christians, it's something that we are actually all called to. And so what do we do? What do you tell the women who just don't want to do it, who don't enjoy it? But we're believers.
It's not just a pastor's wife thing to do. You just got to do it. And if it means you just do it with grilled cheese, great. It just doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it.
I think a lot of times people feel like to be a good hostess, you got to pull out all the stops.
Yeah. Right.
And it becomes sort of about putting on the best presentation.
Well, I have memories of going to people's homes and being served hot dogs and macaroni and cheese on paper plates. And it was just the sweetest time. It was just There was just no fuss. It was easy. Mm-hmm. And it was easy to just relax with it. I mean,
and then you have more time to be doing the visiting and stuff. And
I probably err. I know I do. On the other side, though, it's very hard for me to go very, very simple. Sometimes I'm better at simplifying than others. And other times it's like, no, I want to give this gift of a really nice thing, and so you go to the effort and the work of making something even more special. I mean, and I think that has to be your mindset too. These are your guests. Treat them like guests. Because I think we can go in the other extreme and just be like, oh, the food doesn't matter. Oh, the house doesn't matter. But I don't think that that's
quite either the spirit.
Yeah, you don't want to jump all the way over there. You want to think of special things for your guests or thoughtful things of your guests. Do unto them as you would want them to do to you. How would you want to be treated? Or, the things you think of to set out for them, or how clean you make things for them. You would want to go to a clean place,
So in this book, The Simplest Way to Change the World, they talk about it, and the book's mostly dealing with hospitality related to evangelism. But he talks about, instead of grilling in your backyard, dragging your grill to your front yard and just providing opportunity as neighbors walk by or whatever to engage just in conversation. And if they, oh, what's that you're cooking there? And then just automatically like, you want to have some hot dogs?
Extra. Yeah.
Just making yourself available and accessible to others, I think is actually very much the spirit of hospitality.
In the first house we lived in Bloomington, we started having a Christmas open house. And this is where you can involve your kids. Once they're older, it's easy to use your kids to help get to your neighbors, because they're outside playing, they're doing stuff, and neighbors talk to them, and they often get to know your kids before they get to know you. Well, we started having this Christmas open house, and we printed up little invitations. Come and join us for a Christmas open house. Bring something savory or something sweet, and hope to see you there. And of course, the times. Send the boys down the road to knock on all the doors. And if they weren't home, stick it in the door and invite people. And I think we did it for at least 2 years, maybe 3. And neighbors came. It was great. And it was just a nice way to, without pressure, have them in our home. It wasn't a sit down meal, because these days that can be very uncomfortable to people. They could come and go as they wanted. They felt like they were contributing because they had the option to bring something rather than, we're just showing up at these people's house, That was I loved doing that. We invited a family from the church to just be there with us, to just add to the mix of somebody else interacting. And we invited a couple that have lived in Bloomington for years, and so they were, familiar with the history of the area, and ended up, they knew some same people and stuff like that, so that worked out very nicely too, just to help us with
host,
it.
Almost. Just be co-hosts almost.
So that's a great, if you're afraid to just invite somebody over for dinner, just have a block party and just keep it all outside. We did that before too. When the Pastor's College just got started, we had all the students and their families over, and then we invited our neighbors again. But we just set it all up on the front lawn, so it was very visible to the neighbors, and just had the food at tables out there and blankets out there, and people came and ate with us, and Pastor's College guys everywhere to visit with.
And then it provides an opportunity to at least have enough conversation with your neighbors that when you see them again, you can really talk and feel like you've already had some kind of connection, and then it can kind of build from there. And what do you do when hospitality goes wrong?
The most recent big busy weekend we had like 3 different kinds of people coming all at the same time, and they weren't like they're related to each other for any 3 different people, different reasons to come to town. And so it was just trying to figure out where to put everybody. Right. And then once they left, then family members were coming and, quick bed changes and things like that. But one of the first guests showed up unexpected to me. Stephen was at work. This guy came early. I wasn't expecting. He messaged me, but I was still cleaning, like in this little apartment that we have where he was going to stay. I had just sent our youngest son out to sweep the porch of the small apartment, and while I was finishing up cleaning, and then I hear our door knocker on the house, just like bang, 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 bang. I was like, what in the world is Johnny doing banging on the door? And, our door can get stuck sometimes. It kind of swells with the humidity. Yeah. I was like, if he can't get in, why doesn't he just go around? Yeah. Like, I'm just getting a little annoyed. Here I am. I'm hurrying to clean. Yeah. And he's banging on the door, obviously expecting me to come and open the door for him. So I go over and I open the door and I'm like, what are you doing? And there's this guy standing there. Like, oh, hi. I thought you were my son. Why he's banging on the door? Why didn't you just go around? And so my son was sweeping the wrong sidewalk to begin with. He was sweeping the front one instead of the apartment one. And he's just out there still sweeping.
Oh, and this guy's like
our guest is knocking on the door.
Oh, that is
He's
hilarious.
just sweeping away. I mean, he smiled at him, but just kept sweeping away. He's like,
I got my job.
Yeah. I was like, oh, and he's like, finally. Well, so I opened the door and it's our guest. And it's like, oh, and he's like, yeah, I messaged you, but I hope it's okay that I'm here early. And it's like, yeah, I was just
cleaning your
finishing up, but let me run over there and grab my stuff and let you have your space. Oh, and we have a dog. And so the dog greeted him as well. And our dog is still a puppy, greets everyone by peeing on the floor. And so he's super excited that somebody new had just walked in the door. So I take our guest over to the apartment. The dog follows us, jumps on the bed, pees on the bed.
Oh, no.
So then I have to quickly grip the sheets off the bed so it doesn't soak through too fast.
Into the mattress.
Oh, and thankfully I got it on time. It was just, I didn't have to, it wasn't in the mattress. But then it was like I had a whole bed to redo,
Right? Oh, no.
It's just like, oh, my word. I can't believe this is happening. And so I get the dog out, put him in his crate. Sorry. Well, the guy just needs to get cleaned up from coming into town and leave again. Mm. It's like, yeah, I'll get my stuff. I'll get out of here and I'll change the bed again once you're gone.
Yeah.
But it was just like crazy.
Yeah.
And then, other people are coming as well. And then they leave. And then Saturday night, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law come and my mother-in-law come. Sunday morning, we're all getting ready for church and time, everybody's needing to eat breakfast. And my sister-in-law says, where are your eggs? And I'm like, well, they're in the fridge. And there was 2 eggs in the refrigerator and 10 people who needed to eat. And it was just one of those mornings. I made oatmeal and everybody got oatmeal, but it was
and everybody was probably closer for it. There's something about things going wrong that can stir people's compassion and love for one another and flexibility that could, end up being a sweet thing.
Well, so often you end up talking about their lives and what's going on in their life and, just encouraging them, offering, help and advice as you can. But yeah, you end up sharing your life and they share theirs with you. We have to remember that everything we have is from God. He didn't have to give us any of it. We are so blessed and we just hold it all with open hands and be willing to just let it be used up. There's going to be handprints on the walls. There's going to be, food caked on the bottom of the chair or, whatever, things will get broken.
Overflowing toilets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So hold everything with an open hand and want it to get used up.
Yeah.
And yourself included. Don't be too precious with yourself, too.
Monumental is hosted by Katie Walker and Amy Molina. It is produced and edited by Katie Walker, and it is executive produced by Nathan Alberson and Jake Menzel. If you like the show, please don't forget to rate and review in the app of your choice. And if you're interested in more great content, including articles and other podcasts, please visit warhornmedia.com.